Hey, I'm Hermione from Ashland. Please like and subscribe, and you'll find an ice cream cake in your freezer. Most people are born in a hospital surrounded by doctors, right? Not me. I was born in a freaking movie theater. Mom was a teenager when she had me. She also had a cryptic pregnancy. That meant she didn't know she was pregnant. And she was on a date to see the 5th Harry Potter movie. Hence, why she fangirl named me Hermione.
Why the heck didn't you tell me you were pregnant?
Because I didn't know. But now I know why I've been eating chocolate with ketchup. After that, Mom ended up leaving the city since she didn't want anyone to find out what had happened. Mom raised me in her older sister Rachel's house with her daughter Effie. And growing up, I soon learned that my mom was different from other people. For starters, she didn't wear normal clothes. She only wore sparkly Halloween costumes and dressed me the exact same way. When I was in 1st grade, all the kids were wondering why I was dressed like Rapunzel.
You're not allowed to wear princess dresses in school. Am too. Mommy got special permission from the principal. Freak. You're just jealous because I got the best mommy ever.
But as I got older, I noticed there was something very wrong with my mom. Even by the time I was 13, Mom still forced me to go to school dressed in costume. All the other parents at school thought she was a nutcase. She looks and acts like a teenager gone wild. She even dressed her daughter as a Pixar character the other day. Mom also wasn't home much, and she never showed up for my school plays or sports games when I joined the basketball team. One day when I was in 9th grade, I was hanging out with Effie before her tap dancing lesson, and she kept showing me her fancy twirls and turns. How come you don't want to take tap dancing too, Hermione? I don't think Mom wants me doing any more extracurriculars. She doesn't even come to my play performances or basketball games, or even drives me to practices most of the time. And every time I ask her to, she acts like it's an inconvenience. Sweetie, listen, I don't mind paying for tap dancing lessons if you want to take them. I just won't tell your mom. Really? That'd be awesome. I fell in love with tap dance and looked forward to my lessons each week. But then one morning, I overheard Mom arguing with Aunt Rachel. You signed Hermione up for tap lessons behind my back? You know I don't have time to drive her to every extracurricular she has or come to performances. Come on, it's not a big deal. I don't mind paying for her lessons or coming to her performances. No, she's my daughter. And I said no. Please don't go behind my back again. Mom made me quit tap dancing lessons that week, and I was furious. I had put up with my crazy mom long enough, and I'd had it. So when Mom came home that evening, I confronted her. Why do you hate me? Honey, what are you talking about? I don't hate you. Stop lying. You took away my tap dancing lessons, even though it's my favorite thing in the world. You also never come to my plays or basketball games, and most of all, you're an absolute nutcase who all the other moms at school talk about. I wish Aunt Rachel was my mom and not you. Mom just stared at me, and I regretted my words the minute I said them. She didn't even answer me. She just left to brush her teeth and went to bed. I decided I'd apologize to Mom in the morning and we'd work it out. But when I woke up, I saw something that shook my world. All Mom's stuff was missing, and there was a note taped to our bedroom door. Hermione, you were right. I'm sorry about everything. I'm leaving for a short time to think things over. P.S. I love you. Panicked, I burst into Aunt Rachel's room. Aunt Rachel? Mom said she's leaving for, quote-unquote, a short time. What's going on? Tell me. Hermione, relax. She's just leaving for a week to take some time for herself. She'll be back feeling much happier and refreshed. But something in my gut told me Mom wasn't doing well. Worst of all, I worried that it was my fault. Luckily, Mom returned after a few days as she promised, but when she did, her clothes were all ragged and she looked like she hadn't brushed her hair in months. That night, I decided to take my mind off Mom by watching a movie with Effie, but instead, she was with her boyfriend and she wanted me to leave them alone. We're having a date, Hermione. I don't have time to hear about your drama with your mom. Geez, all right, I'll leave you alone. I'm just worried about her, that's all. Yeah, but you're not doing anything about it. You just whine about her. But you still let her dress in Disney princess costumes and never stand up to her. Instead, you try to take over my mom and my life. Effie, you don't understand. My mom isn't a normal person. I stood up to her one time and she just left for 6 days. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But at my core, I knew Effie had a point. I couldn't let Mom walk all over me. I had to take some kind of action. Except the next day, something happened that changed everything. I got home from school to see a new couch in the living room. Mom was sitting on it next to Aunt Rachel, and she looked furious. How could you do this? I was perfectly fine on the old one. It's no big deal. We needed a new one. The old one you bought had springs poking out of it. You always do this. You always humiliate me in front of my daughter. That's not true. All I've ever tried to do is help you both. I'm not putting up with this anymore. Hermione, come on. on. We're leaving. You can't leave. You have nowhere to go, and it isn't fair to Hermione. No, what's not fair is how you think you're so much better than me. Mom packed her bags and then dragged me out of there. We wandered the street for what felt like forever. After that, we got the train out of the city, and she found us this tiny apartment to live in. The elevator didn't work, it was freezing, and it smelled like mold. As the years went by, I continued living with my chaotic, unstable mom. She partied every night until 4 a.m. like a teenager. She barely could pay the rent because she spent all our money on hair dye, more Disney costumes, and comic books. She didn't even buy proper groceries. Mom, you do realize this bread is 10 days past the expiration date, right? Of course. Just criticize everything I do. You're so ungrateful. One day, I even saw a stack of envelopes. They were all unpaid electricity bills. How are we supposed to pay for this? Hermione, don't worry. I'll take care of it. How? You only work part-time and are always running off to parties and concerts. And when you are home, all you do is watch Disney movies or anime. Mom kept telling me not to stress, but a week later, the doorbell rang and it was our landlord. He said he was kicking us out since Mom still hadn't paid the bill. We stayed in a homeless shelter for a week before we found a new place. Then one morning in 12th grade, I saw a note taped to the fridge. Back in a month. Love, Mom. A month? Leaving was so typical of my selfish mom, but she'd never been gone for more than a week. But a month passed and she still hadn't returned. I knew she was alive because she liked one of my Instagram posts. I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to come back. It was like Effie said, I couldn't sit back anymore while Mom ran my life. So that week, I sold some of my things and got a job as a part-time barista. Mom finally came home 10 days later, but by then, I'd reached a breaking point. I didn't want to put up with her anymore. So as time went by, I began to distance myself from her. I stopped cleaning up her messes, paying her unpaid bills, and barely spoke to her. By the time I finished high school, I'd saved up enough money to move out, and I lost touch with Mom, who eventually stopped calling me. 5 years later, I was working as a surgical technician when one night I got a weird call, and when I heard the caller's voice, my heart leapt to my throat. Hermione, I know you haven't heard from me in a while, but can you come over? A while? It's been 5 years! Why are you contacting me? Honey, please, it's an emergency. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask, because I know you don't want to hear from me. I got worried when Mom said that, and so that night, I took a 3-hour flight to see her. But when I arrived at her apartment, she looked perfectly fine. Not bleeding or broken, just eating a bowl of chips in front of the TV. Hey, Mom, want to tell me what the emergency is that I flew on a 3-hour flight for? Hermione, this is very embarrassing for me to ask, but I called you here to see if I can borrow some money? No. You're joking. Sweetie, why am I surprised? What, you need money for midnight concert tickets? I'd rather not say what I need the money for. I just need you to know it's important. That was it. I took Mom's chip bowl and threw it on the ground, breaking it. I stormed out the door and called Aunt Rachel, telling her everything that had happened. I ended up going to her place to sleep, but when I got there, Effie answered the door. Hey, what are you doing here? I'm staying here for a few days. I thought you might need some moral support, considering what's going on with your mom. Oh, you didn't hear the news? My mom didn't have any emergency. She just wanted to borrow money and wouldn't even tell me for what. Hermione, your mom didn't tell you because she didn't want you to worry. She wants the money for a mental health treatment center. My mom and I are giving her some money, but we can't afford to pay for all of it. Mom wanted to check herself into treatment? She'd never even gone to therapy before. What had suddenly changed? As if reading my mind, Effie put her arm around me. She feels horrible about how she's treated you over the years, and after you cut contact with her, she realized that she needed to get help. How could it take her 23 years to realize she needs help? Maybe because your mom was always a fighter. We swore we'd never tell you this, but she worked 4 jobs just to be able to raise you. That's why she'd go away for a week randomly. She'd be looking for new work. Don't get me wrong, she was a train wreck and none of us knew what to do about it. And that's why I got mad that you were always in my space. But your mom's a good person and she did love you. Tears filled my eyes as Effie hugged me, and then Aunt Rachel came. I wrote a check for Mom that night and admitted her to the local treatment center. And a couple of weeks later, the doctors let me visit her and she looked so happy to see me. Instantly, all my anger toward her melted away. Hermione, you're here. Of course I'm here, silly. You're my mom. So, what did the doctors say? Did they give you some diagnosis? They think I might have a few things. But the truth is, I don't think I have anything. When you have a baby that young, even if it's a miracle baby, you just lose your mind a little. I felt like I lost my childhood. That's why I always wore Disney princess costumes. I wanted my childhood back. So, is that your way of saying you wish you never had me? Of course not. It was worth giving up everything to have you. It just wasn't fair to you that I lost my sanity, or to Aunt Rachel, who helped me out so much. I guess I was ashamed of accepting all her help, even though she's my sister. You don't have to feel ashamed about anything. After all, you worked 4 jobs just to raise me. I'm just glad you're finally getting the help you need. I pulled Mom close and hugged her. We probably would never have a normal relationship, but for the first time, I felt peace between us. Mom was released from treatment a month later, and when we came to pick her up, she was holding a flyer that she handed to me. I know you have a job now, Hermione, but if you ever move back here, they are holding tap dancing classes at the rec center. I know how much you loved it, and I always felt bad for taking it away from you. If you stay here, I'll pay for the lessons. That's really sweet, Mom. I don't know if I'm moving back here yet, but if I do, I might just take you up on that offer. I love you. I love you too.